Times Radio Early Breakfast.
16 minutes past 5 on Times Radio. It's time then to go through the morning's papers. Joining us to do that is the barrister and the broadcaster, Andrew Eborn. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. Always a delight to join you.
Absolutely lovely to have you here. Let's focus on Labour Party conference. I mean, that is the focus of the week. The government trying to sort of kick on into this autumn. The big event this autumn will be the budget at the end of November. So there is lots of talk about, are you going to raise taxes? Are you not going to raise taxes? Government ministers steadfastly refusing to rule out more tax rises. It begs the question, how do you pull off what could well be a screeching U-turn of raising VAT when you've pretty explicitly said you're not going to raise it? How do you possibly pull that off?
Oh, such a good point, Tom, as always. Yes, it will ring in their ears the triple tax lock, where Labour committed in their manifesto not to raising the rates of income tax, national insurance contribution or value-added tax for the duration of the Parliament, for what they call working people, good, honest working people. So what about the rest of us? That's the question. So this is what Rachel Reeves has sort of urged Labour voters to keep the faith as she's signalled further tax rises in the budget. She says there's a harsh global headwind, so we all know about that, and that was terribly predictable. But you're right, she hasn't ruled out increasing VAT. She's going to keep her options open because she's got the task of raising £30 billion. And you've got to look at that sort of side. But it's going to come back and haunt them all of the time. There's a wonderful meme going round saying, of the thousands of lies that you've told the public, which is your favourite? To which the response is, I don't lie. To which they say, yes, that's my favourite too. And this is going to come back to haunt them all of the time when you're talking about this sort of triple tax lock. It clearly can't stand to the current economic climate, and that's what they're going to hope that people understand.
And, I mean, do you think that there is a world in which this VAT change actually is not necessarily raising the p on the pound, as it were, of VAT? It's expanding VAT so that it covers things like private healthcare, for example, a little bit like removing private schools exemption. So therefore you're not actually raising VAT, but you are levying it on a wider range of things, whether it's gambling firms and that sort of thing. Do you think that will be accepted as not raising the taxes on working people? That was their definition. If, government ministers might come out and say, well, if you're a working person, you're not going to have private healthcare, you rely on the NHS. Do you think that's going to wash?
Well, I don't think it washes at all, Tom, does it? I think it's weasel words, and I pointed out at the time, this is what they do in manifestos. I think there should be penalties if people don't keep to their manifestos. Everybody understood when they sort of voted for Labour, or whoever voted for Labour, that not raising taxes meant exactly that. When you start digging into weasel words and hiding behind them, I always say that trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. And as I say, this is going to come to haunt them. What people should do is just be honest. The general public, the British public, are far more intelligent than politicians give them credit for. They know that in order to spend money, you've got to get money in. And if we had that sort of honesty from the beginning and say, look, hang about, we live in uncertain times at the moment. We need to be flexible. There's no harm in being flexible. And the word U-turn is not such a bad thing if circumstances change. But outline what those circumstances might be so that you keep people on board.
And do you think they're doing that job well enough? Because it's the famous George H.W. Bush quote, read my lips, no new taxes. He then went on to raise taxes. That is, the fact we're still quoting that sort of 35 years later, shows quite how significant that U-turn was. But do you think that the government, this is a sensible strategy to lay that groundwork? Do you think they're doing the work to try to win the public over? Because, like you say, there is this enormous hole in the public finances, and it's looking hard to see how they get that money in any way other than raising one of the big taxes.
Well, I think I always say it's all about communication, isn't it? And I go back to my central point, is that the public are not stupid. They know you have to raise money in order to spend it. And so to come out with twee little statements like, I'm Chancellor in the world as it is, not the world that I might wish it to be, doesn't go back to the central promise about this triple lock on not increasing taxes. So they were foolish to make that pledge in the manifesto. It will come back to haunt them. There needs to be an honesty about this is the current economic cycle. tide. But yet again, when you're talking about raising VAT, this time on private healthcare, and they've done it on school fees, and we've talked about in the past the knock-on effect that's had on families, the devastating effect it had on schools, and so on and so forth. This is yet another hit for not just the working people, because everybody's working. And I think that sort of weasel words about definition, it's actually very offensive.
Yes, the working people definition has been something that they keep asking ministers about, and it's going to trip them up a little bit. Do get in touch with your thoughts about, I mean, do you think that this is the right thing to do? Do you agree with Andrew that it was the wrong thing to do in the first place to offer it in the manifesto? Was that the mistake? Is that the original sin, as it were, in trying to shut it down and then having to go back on it? Would you accept that VAT has to go up if it improves your public services? Get in touch with us, 87222. Start your message with the word Times, or WhatsApp us, 0333 003 2353. Andrew, let's turn to, well, I suppose the Prime Minister will hope to get back on the front foot with his speech this afternoon. He is talking about virtual hospitals, being able to see a consultant in any corner of the country, basically Zoom appointments with consultants. But a virtual hospital makes it sound very grand. What do you make of it?
Well, not only what do I make of this, is something I predicted years ago. As a futurist, back to the futurist, we've been looking at technology and how different industries should embrace it. And I can tell you, yes, it's a great idea. We must be able to basically reduce the huge waiting lists there are for NHS appointments. And I can tell you, we should benefit not just from experts in this country, but experts around the world. And I predict a future where you can basically consult the best people in the world as a result of doing it virtually. I want to put the AI into Britain, as I often say, and this is one way to do it. But this is what they're going to do. It's great news. It's always great news about rebuilding Britain. It's always great news about turning around and saying, let's embrace technology and the tremendous opportunities that are happening. So from 2027, patients will be offered video consultations with specialist clinicians through the NHS app. The new service is promising 8.5 million appointments and assessments in its first 3 years. I would go further than that. And as I say, we've got experts around the world. We need to join the dots, not just in terms of that, but also the great research that we have around the world. And as you know, I've been working with all sorts of interesting institutions, basically to helping to try and join those dots. If you can access all of the learning around the world to benefit the patient in front of you, that has got to be a good thing.
I suppose the issue is you've obviously got to bring the NHS with you on that. And the British Medical Association is threatening a GP strike over making it easier for patients to get an appointment through an online booking system. There are going to be more and more of these examples of the government trying to modernise the NHS, trying to modernise the technology within it and make it more accessible, and the people working within the system who it might rub up against their priorities.
Yeah, and I think the important thing about this, Tom, is it's fear. And it's Edward Bernays who said that the greatest way to sell anything is through fear. It's the strongest human emotion. So what the BMA, the British Medical Association, is saying is that there are insufficient safeguards in this new requirement for basically being able to book appointments online. And therefore, they're not being able to prioritise those who might be urgently in need of assistance. But if you can book your hair appointments and you can book other appointments and so on and so forth, and wonderful as your hair always looks, you can do that online, making it easy to get a doctor's appointment has got to be right. But you can build in those safeguards. The same question as the person you speak to when you first call the doctor's surgery could be asked online to prioritise that sort of information and avoid what they call the barrage of online requests. So they're right to raise these concerns, but I do believe that these concerns can be dealt with.
Yes, and I mean, officials have said it needs to be safeguards to avoid those sorts of requests becoming overburdensome and being submitted in error. But it does seem like, everything is done online, and that will also be done online. Let's turn away from Labour, Andrew, and it's across many of the papers, front page of The Sun, this row between J.K. Rowling and Emma Watson. And obviously they've been on different sides of the discussion, the debate as it has turned into between where do the rights of trans people interact with the rights of women and single-sex spaces. It's obviously been a particularly toxic debate. I don't think there's necessarily much value in two blokes like us getting into the rights and wrongs of that debate again. But I'm more interested in, how do you get forgiveness and how do you how do we get over that toxicity and coexist again? Because in this case, Emma Watson gave an interview saying, I still love J.K. Rowling despite the fact that I disagree with her views. J.K. Rowling has come out and said, well, actually, you didn't stand up for me when I felt I was particularly under attack, and some of the things that you did led to more abuse. That's J.K. Rowling's view. How do we get to a point of being able to forgive each other over it? And is that possible in this case?
Well, it is extraordinary. We live in a diseased information age where so much toxicity, as you say, is bandied around. I was honoured to be invited to New York and Times Square, speak in Times Square at the International Peace Festival, and urge people about jaw, not war. We need to listen to other people's points of views. By listening, we get understanding. But this toxicity, as you say, the language has led to, murders. You had a terrible case about Charlie Kirk and various others and so on and so forth as a result of views that they expressed. People talk about free speech, but they're basically just paying lip service to it. What JK is saying is that Watson is ignorant of her own ignorance. She's only ever grown up as a multimillionairess as a result of what Rowling herself did with her fantastic work. And it's difficult because if she's not aware of the consequences of some vile comments which were made in the press and in the media, and the consequences of those vile comments, that's the thing that she's really warning against. And J.K. Rowling was subjected to all sorts of abuse and also threats to her life. And I think we need to turn down the rhetoric. We need to have, as I say, sunlight is the best disinfectant. We need to have honest discussions about issues, do it with respect for all people in the conversation. But we need to make sure that the rhetoric is about understanding, not about inflammatory language that can cause, as I say, these horrendous murders and other attacks.
Yes, and I think, the first port of call is having a common understanding of terminology, of rights, and we're not even there yet, but that's possibly the first step in trying to reconcile. Let's finish just briefly, Andrew, on something a little lighter, I suppose, than all that. Dating. I don't know how long it's been since you were on the dating scene, Andrew. I don't want to necessarily get too deep into your personal life.
My wife will be delighted that I'm not on the dating scene.
Well, there you go. Thank God for Mrs. Eborn will be pleased with that news. But there's a very funny piece in Times 2 about from 22-year-old Grace Eastwood. Dating for love? No, we just want a free dinner. Basically, people, it's a TikTok trend, going on dates to basically get free food and drink.
Yes, it's extraordinary. Well, at least there's a sort of honesty about it, isn't there? And actually putting it the other way, there is that sort of transactional side. I just want to go out. I want to go to the theatre. There are other apps available with people who are lonely and want to go with someone to the theatre or to the cinema or whatever it is. And it doesn't involve dating as such. It's just companionship. And I'm all in favour of that. You can have little dinner parties with people who are single, who just want to get into single, but not necessarily ready to mingle for dating purposes, but just want company for one night, no strings attached, and working on that basis. But this is what they're saying in this wonderful article, beautifully written, that what they have is when you only went on the date for free food, that's amassed over 100,000 likes on a text, and various others. That apparently TikTok is full of people boasting about dating for a free meal. I think if people understand it right at the beginning, that this is what you're wanting is just company, that's about it. And I do agree, you have to turn down dating nowadays. There's far too many expectations. And I think if you just start with company, just start with friends and see how things evolve naturally, that can't be a bad thing.
There you go. Nothing wrong with, you don't have to look for your future spouse, you just have to look for a nice time in an evening. Andrew Eborn, even though you've disappointed our listeners by taking yourself very much off the market, thank you for joining us, the
Always
barrister and the broadcaster, Andrew Eborn there.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio.